Well, let's jump right back in. This is part 2 of the February Soul Shift coaching session. I hope you enjoyed part 1, which we did live on Tuesday. And now today I'm coming in to record answers to the remaining questions. This next section with Jen Bradshaw, Lisa Knight, and Kayla Hoopenthal is really focused on ceremony and some journey questions. And one thing I want to suggest, because it was sort of a similar answer for Lisa and Kayla, is it's really, really, really important. And you're going to hear me say this many times, but it always bears repeating. And some people are new, so they haven't heard me say it before. So everybody experiences their spirit guides really differently. And it's good for you to hear this ahead of Elder Council, which is tomorrow if you're listening today. Some people see their spirit guides, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people sense spirit guides. And as with everything, honestly, and you've heard me say this too, I've gotten kind of exhausted of like people using the same terms in spiritual contexts and assuming that like we all mean the same thing. I do think we have a lot of different kind of spirit guides. I think we have ancestors who are spirit guides. I think we have pure form spirits who are spirit guides. I think we have teachers in spirit. And I think that the intuitive hits that you get, the wisdom, the insight, the like things that you know, but you can't quite explain how you know them, to me, that's your spirit guides. I think it's the enormity of what's on the other side is astounding. I mean, it's breathtaking. It would be too much. I mean, I've seen a lot in medicine space, which is why I'm telling you this. But it is almost like consciousness breaking to see how big the other side is. But it shouldn't surprise you. How many souls do you think are in this multiverse and layers and dimensions and realities and so our life here is pretty contained. So we tend to look across the veil and think, well, I probably have 2 or 3 spirit guides and, I sure wish Joe would let me see him or whatever. And it's like, I think you have an absolute legion of spirit voices that sing in this cacophony of magic that surrounds you at any one time. And so for Jen, it was for Lisa Knight, who said, I need some guidance regarding journey. After seeing another's post about it, I started looking into myself. How do I handle journey when I see absolutely nothing? I haven't done journey or elder council in months because it gets so frustrating. And that's why, Lisa Knight, I want you to think about the fact that maybe you're not clairvoyant. And not everybody is. I mean, in my experience, maybe 10% of people are truly clairvoyant where they see spirit. Everybody else is clairaudient, clairsentient, clairalient, clairgustant, claircognizant. They sense, they feel, they smell, they taste. And if those people got frustrated because they couldn't see something, that would be a real shame because it may not be the way that spirit communicates with you. And so I think if you can hold space for that, you might enjoy the process more. And honestly, once you let go of the expectation or assumption that you're supposed to see stuff, I think you'll actually see more. Sometimes when we try too hard to get or create or experience, it's like whatever that is eludes us, right? And so I would encourage you, and then Kayla Hoopenthal said, I often fall asleep during meditations. I'm still awake. I can hear you talking, but I can't remember any of it. Last year, you mentioned that your understanding of this was my guides had to knock me out to get me out of the way of things. That's fine. I trust them. But what can I expect the integration to look like after experiencing this? And so integration looks like, by the way, just to take a step back, is the process after your journey or after your meditation of how you bring the wisdom or the insight that you gained, how you translate that and bring that into your life so that you can work with it, right? I mean, the whole point of what you see in a journey is that you're going to learn something, it's going to shift your consciousness, and then you're going to embody it in your life in a different way. And so I think it's, again, needing to let go of expectations, which was a similar message for Lisa. Let go of concrete evidence of things happening. Know that integration sometimes is very, very smooth, and integration sometimes is very bumpy. And that's because, again, your human psyche, my human psyche, our human psyche is very delicate. We can't handle a lot. That's That's why Spirit's very gentle with us. And even people who are like, give it to me, I want to see it all, I want to know it all, I want to do it all. Spirit's like, yeah. One step at a time. They're not here to overwhelm you, they're here to teach you. And it's really funny. I often think of this too, because I'm a teacher too. And like, for example, in Crystal Masters right now, I think people just want to know everything there is to know about crystal healing before the end of February, when it's a year-long class. And this used to happen to me when I taught university too. It was like students would come into my 12-week or 16-week semester-long class and be like, okay, well, I should know how to write by now, at the end of week 2. Or I should understand, these statistical methods, or I should understand qualitative research, or whatever I was teaching at the time. And it's like, it's a 16-week class for a reason. You know what I mean? There's excitement, there's enthusiasm. I want it. I want to know it. I want to experience it. I want to, but there's parts of the work that we're doing, you guys, that are long game, meaning takes years, right? I've been an active student of whatever you call this, and honestly, pick a word. I mean, metaphysics or magic or ceremony or whatever. And I've studied with more than a dozen people over the last, I really started studying in earnest at 17 is when I signed up for my first class and started going. Back then, classes were all in person. They didn't have online anything. And I can look back through the clarity of time and recognize that if I had been shown at 17, 18 years old, some of the stuff I've been shown in the last 2 years, I don't think I had a container to hold it. It may have actually been detrimental. It may have been too much too soon. And, the spirit guides and all their wisdom, they know how to, what in coaching we call stage gate this. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's my other mantra you'll hear me say all the time, no energy before it's time. So on the one hand, stay open, keep asking for what you want to see and experience. On the other hand, create space for the fact that there is a higher intelligence at play. And sometimes I even surprise myself in the way that I integrate. It's like, you know what? Let it all happen effortlessly in service of my highest good. I almost see part of my journey, integration, download, channeling, all of that happening like in a lane that's almost to the right of my lane. I try not to get involved or like meddle or ask what's going on or ask for updates or like, where am I, or am I on the right path? I'm trying in my life to be in a place of surrender, that it's all unfolding and happening. Here's the ultimate test, everybody. Okay. Whether you see your spirit guides, don't see your spirit guides, fall asleep during your journey, stay awake during your journey, have all the magical tools, don't have the magical tools. The ultimate test is, in every moment, every day, ask yourself, where was I a year ago? The year is always a test, and I'll explain why in a minute. Do you know more, understand more, move with greater intelligence now than you did at the end of February 2019? By the way, my answer to that question is, oh my God. Even I have made a quantum leap in the last 12 months. I look back and I'm like, really? Just in terms of how I looked at situations or understood situations or what I was hoping for or expecting or whatever, I'm guessing you can say the same thing. Now, that may not be, I'm the same person, I'm wearing the same clothes, you know what I mean? I live in the same house. It's not like the external circumstances of my life are radically different, but how I'm showing up to life is very different. I'm taking a moment to pause there because a lot of times humans need a year. There's a reason why we get a year older. 12 is a sacred number of months, number of astrological signs. 12 is the dodecahedron, which represents the infinite possibilities of prosperity in your life. the infinite possibilities of how the 5 elements show up in your life. The dodecahedron is actually a 12-sided object, but each one of the sides is a pentagon. And the pentagon represents the human body, head, 2 arms, 2 legs. It represents the pentacle, which is a representation of the human body. The star is the human body, right? The upper point is the head, middle points of the arms, bottom points of the legs. Also corresponds to earth, air, fire, water, and spirit or ether. I'm bringing you back to these basics because that cycle is the most appropriate cycle for assessing the learning of a human being. We advance a grade in school each year. We advance a year in age each year. And so I'm going to tell you this right now, but you're going to hear me say it 100 times this year because someone won't listen to this audio, or they're going to enroll in class next month, or they didn't want to hear it, so they repressed it, and I have to say it again. You have to give your learning a year. You have to give me a year. You have to give the process a year. You have to give yourself a year. That is the human quantum cycle. We have microcycles, right? Lunar cycles of 28 days, which is the female body, reacts by manifesting the lunar cycle in the menstrual cycle, right? So that's the as above, so below that women embody. But even that cycle is almost too quick. And it's funny, I used to think about this when I was a professor because I taught in 2 different universities. One was on a quarter system where the quarters were 12 weeks long, and one was on a semester system where you had 4 months, you had 16 weeks. It's not that much of a difference, but the anxiety level in students on a quarter system compared to the anxiety level in general of students on a semester system, radically different. My students on a semester system, even though it's only 4 more weeks, felt like they had so much more time to breathe, to learn, to move, to expand. On the quarter system, it was like hustle bustle, very much anxiety inducing, especially in students who need a longer cycle. And I used to try to explain this to them, like, look, if some of you are really not doing well on the quarter system, and unfortunately it's what we're working with, but I need you to recognize. And when I see people teaching classes that are 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, I pause, because in my experience, that is not enough time. So if you ever wonder why I teach per annum, right, by the year, it's because in my experience, it really does take that long. And my goal is transformation, whether you're in Soul Shift or Crystal Masters only or whatever. My goal is for you to be able to see evidence of this quantum cycle in your own personal development. But I want you to remember there's a reason why we work in 12-month, 12-sign cycles as human beings. Okay. Jen Almond asked, during the Imbolc ceremony, we made sacrament. What ways can we use this? What different ways do you use the sacrament during the year, even though we made it in Imbolc? So Imbolc is a very important holiday because Imbolc is the first flicker of the flame on February 1st. It is, for those of us who crave the sun, it is the first sign of hope from nature. The birds start to sing, little green buds on trees start to emerge. That sacrament is a sacrament of opening. It's an offering. I use it as an anointing blend. I just used it this past weekend in a little ceremony I did for myself at home. You can place it on your wrist, your third eye, and your ankles, like I do, like just substitute it for perfume. It's an offering to plants. If you harvest from your garden, it's always good to put a little sacrament at the root of your plants. It can be used as a blessing blend. You can dress candles with it. So put it in your hands, rub your hands together, and then rub your hands over a candle to dress it. It can be used on the body. I have clients who come to those ceremonies, make a sacrament, and then we'll use that in their massage therapy practice. You can also use it as incense because the best incense has essential oil in it. When I make incense, even if it looks like a powdered incense, there's essential oils in it. They work as binding agents to sort of keep the whole mixture together, and they also intensify the scent and the energy of the incense itself. So thank you for that question. Hopefully that's helpful to others of you too. Now we move into sort of a category of astrology. I've got MJ Bond asking, based on the 12 houses of our natal chart in our first class, how do you heal your house? MJ, I'd like to ask you to reframe that question for me because I'm not sure what you mean by heal your house. When we're talking about Hygeia, you look at the house that Hygeia is in and the sign that it's in. And the work is more about understanding how you heal through Hygeia rather than healing a house that Hygeia may be in. But I want to make sure I understand your question. So if you can reframe that for me, I would appreciate it, and I'll come back to you. Tamara Sanchez said, I'm not resonating with my sign or Hygeia. I did see there's an updating version on the signs, and I would be a Pisces, which resonates some, just wondering why. There are different reasons why people don't resonate with their astrological sign. And what I always tell people is look at your resistance. A lot of times there are aspects of a sign that people don't want to resonate with. You know, for a long time, being double fire, and growing up and kind of hearing almost consistently that I was always kind of too much. Talked too much or took up too much space. Being a double fire sign in a family that's mostly water and air was really tricky because I was always like the spark, and I didn't always want to be the spark. And so I resisted being a Leo with a Sag moon for a long time because I didn't want to be that. There is a subconscious resistance sometimes to our astrological chart that is worth exploring because it could be, and again, not conscious even, but a subconscious resistance to your elemental profile. If you're a water sign and you're not feeling that, or if you're an air sign and you're not feeling that, it's like, what you might ask yourself, candidly, is there anything about that sign that I reject? And in my case, I had to say, yeah. And then I realized I have the exact right profile for who I am and what I'm supposed to do in the world. It just was very difficult growing up with that profile. Lisa Gates, regarding Hygeia, do cusps or degrees matter for placement? I am 0. What I would recommend for you, just because these are really what I teach you in this class is like beginner to intermediate astrology. I would focus more on the house and the sign placement than the degree, because it's not really, for our purposes, going to impact the interpretation. And so hopefully that's helpful. Roxy knew Hygeia is in Virgo, because of course it is, which is a shame because that is my South Node and my Moon and my Lilith. So I need to eat clean and be orderly, but I also need to avoid doing these things. I suppose I could say I have some questions about this. What if your Hygeia is in your South Node? So one of the things I want to say is, and it's a reminder, your South Node is what you were here to do last time in general. Okay. So some people interpret that as what you need to avoid in this lifetime. Your South Node can sometimes be a guide to understand old patterns because it's stuff you were doing, thinking about, focusing on in your past lifetime. So it's not that you have to look and say, oh, I can't do anything South Node in this lifetime. But you could say that your path to healing requires you to look at old patterns. And that makes, honestly, Roxy, that makes perfect sense to me. My Hygeia is not in the sign of my South Node, but if it was, I would be looking at what is it in my subconscious, in some old patterns that influence current behavior that might be a key to unlock the door to my healing, and journal about that. And especially if any of you have that as well. Diane Lightsey asked, what do you all know about shapeshifters? I think I may have encountered one at work today. Without recording an absolute novel for you, people do shapeshift. And I see it more as I've gotten older. I do think that the ability to see people's other forms is a spirit gift. Not everybody has it, so don't worry if you don't see shapeshifters. I've seen people right in front of my eyes turn into insects and animals and all kinds of things and then shape right back. And it helps me understand them better. Because those iterations, the animals, the insects, the whatever they morph into, the birds, gives you a clue about what else is happening with them on a subconscious level. So that's what I think about shapeshifters. It was a great question. Kiona asked, so I have a few questions about spirit guides. How or when do you know who or what they are? I try to connect during class time when we do meditation, but I feel like I'm not connecting with them. Most of the time when we're with Athena live doing things, my attention in a way is half focused on them because I'm focused with my girls and I have to keep an eye on them. My 3-year-old is easy to find things or keep her distracted, but my 10-month-old is a big time mama's girl, is always with me or crawling all over. I remember those days. Could this be why I'm not connecting? Because I'm not giving it my undivided attention. And so, Kiona, I think I probably already answered this in one of my earlier responses about spirit guides. It's really about how you expect to be communicated with. And, from a Buddhist perspective or paradigm, it's not about focusing more or not having anything distracting you. I mean, really, the goal of meditation is to be able to meditate in your car when you're sitting in traffic or driving or eating, or, it's about mindful meditation and being able to be present in the moment, even while the rest of the world is spinning. So we have elder council, which I think is a good opportunity to connect with spirit guides. And my best advice to you right now is have an open mind and try to see that, it's not like there's some ultimate goal that you're only going to be able to have a really powerful meditation if your kids are somewhere and your husband's somewhere and the room is silent. Cecilia asked, I know there's a few things you can do to help grow your intuition and spiritual side: yoga, meditation, journaling, grounding, plant medicine. Is there anything else I could do? And my question back to you is, what do you think you need to do? In my own mind, I'm being led back to that moment earlier in this conversation where I shared with you that, spirit kind of opens doors as you grow and evolve and move through these cycles. I think it's really great for you that you have begun this work early in your life, because by the time you're my age, can you imagine, right? So I used to be in that place of and I think I said this earlier in this audio too, like, I want it, give it to me, I want it now, I want all of it now. And I look back now with some gratitude for the fact that my spirit guides kind of throttled things a little bit because I wasn't ready. And I can hold now, what's come to pass or to be understood or known more recently, but it would have been harder for me to hold a lot of these things before. So hopefully that's helpful in terms of understanding or thinking through. Christine asked, I have my 432 Hertz tuning fork with me at work. My coworker stated she could not sleep, so I asked if she would like a brief tune while we had some space. She had her Palo Santo spray. She cleared it, and then she was guided to focus on her upper body with the tuning fork, and afterwards she felt shaky. Not sure if it's from me hitting the tuning fork on the palm of my hands. Also, I felt a heaviness in my chest. I'm pretty sure I'm feeling her energy. How can I protect my energy from taking in her energy? Is my quick prep before starting a good thing? I did thank my guides afterward for helping me and smudged the room again with my spray. How do you guys do little rituals on the go? And how do you release energy you picked up after the work you've done? So this is set and setting. And I would encourage you to go back and read the January materials, Christine, that I put up on the website, and also, information that I shared in session 1 of Soul Shift this year, talking about set and setting. It's partly about your intention going into this session. If you're going to be doing some pretty powerful work, it doesn't hurt to open a circle. That tightens up the container of the work that you're doing, because when you're doing energy work, it's almost like a big beacon, like a big neon sign to the universe. Hey, shit's going down over here. And it calls in all energies and all frequencies. And our universe is a very dynamic and polar place in the sense that there are higher frequencies and there are lower frequencies. And so whether I'm doing a 2-minute healing on somebody or a 20-minute healing on somebody, I still do a centering prayer, which we talked about this month. And I'm going to be giving you in Crystal Masters some more specific setup and teardown protocol for how to create, prepare for a session. But what I would say is, if you're going to be going into somebody's field who needs energy work, it might be good to pay special attention to March Crystal Masters when I teach you how to open a portal. Because a portal is like your energetic trash can. And I don't know how else to explain it to you. That's not a delicate way of saying it, but that's what it is. And it gives a place for unwanted energy to go in a healing session. So it's not sitting in the room. So it's not coming into your energy field. But again, usually a centering prayer, asking your spirit guides to allow energy to flow through you, but not from you, and to protect your own energetic field is enough to keep those energies from coming through you personally. Melissa Rosario, how do you know if you're unintentionally carrying dark energy around with you? I know I recently had a horrifying dream and I was worried that I may have brought something dark to my home. I smudged my home and my whole body and asked my pendulum if I was safe, and it said yes. Dark dreams are not signs of anything in my experience. Your subconscious has to process a lot, and the processing of subconscious energy is really a complex process. And so, and you may think, well, I didn't watch a movie, or I didn't see anything, but think about the news that comes through. Think about, again, there's a lot of information coming to you from all directions at all times, and your subconscious is processing it. And so sometimes what seems like a really scary dream, or like, where did that come from, is your subconscious processing and filtering out information. And so in my experience, having a bad dream is not a sign that there's dark energy around you. Lori Valdez, I understand the concept of holding space, but I have a hard time wrapping my mind around holding space. I'm hoping you can clarify this for me. This goes back, Lori, to what I was talking about in the live session about becoming the compassionate witness. And what I shared yesterday, just to remind everybody, is there's different ways to hold space. You can hold space energetically by saying a prayer for someone, by imagining a beam of white light surrounding them, asking God, Source, Creator, Goddess, higher power to flood them with the highest and brightest light. Or some people hold physical space. They set up an altar for a person. They open a circle. They light a candle. These are examples of material ways of holding space for someone. They write down the person's name and put it on their prayer altar. And so one of the things I would encourage you to help you kind of wrap your mind around it is to think about, would you prefer to hold energetic space for people or material space, physical space? And then ask yourself what that looks like for you. Shelby asked, I have a question about chakra systems. I have a chakra system. My cat has one. You have one. The earth has one. My question is, in the case of a click, for example, would the click itself create its own chakra system? It's an interesting question. In my experience, the chakra system is discrete, meaning each energy or entity has its own chakra system. Groups, however, create their own vibrational fields. And that's how I explain cliques. Cliques are little groups of friends or little groups of people who kind of coagulate with each other or coalesce with each other in a particular way, usually have a similar energetic frequency. And they communicate that frequency in sometimes very subtle ways. But you'll know when it comes to a clique whether you're meant to be part of that clique or you are not meant to be part of that clique. And it's a helpful thing to teach younger kids, actually, because a lot of younger kids are like, well, why don't those kids want to be friends with me? You're not vibrationally aligned. And maybe that's a good thing. Sometimes there's a clique and you think, oh, I really want to be part of that, or it's a group at work. And then later on, all those people quit or all those people get fired. And if you'd been, part of that frequency, then it wouldn't have ultimately been a good thing for you. So I've learned to trust the frequency of groups And if I feel a kinship and a connection, that's great. If I don't, that's also great. Because remember, frequency is information. And it's often encoded with insight for you. And so being drawn to a group, or, conversely, being sort of rejected from a group, can also be good wisdom and good information. I used to, especially, when I, as a business owner, sometimes employees will, start, and I remember this even happening, like when I was in the private sector, or when we had a new professor at the university, we'd have a new colleague and they would come in, and then a month or two later, they're gone. And it was misalignment of frequencies. And I always used to really respect people who figured it out sooner than later. Because some people, either just keep pushing and like, no, I want to be here. I'm going to be here no matter what. Or they don't know how to read frequency. They can't tell that there's a disconnection there. But that's the whole concept of find your tribe, find your hive, right? Jerusalem asked, when using a pendulum, is it possible for lower vibrational or negatively oriented entities to influence the answers you get? If so, how can we ensure that only our guides, higher self, or other positively oriented beings answer our questions? And so that is, I think, again, with this particular question, I think you're going to find the March bonus session on crystal healing preparation techniques to be really helpful. Setting an intention, opening a circle with selenite, calling in what I call pan protection, which old timers may know what that concept means. The one thing, and I'm not going to teach pan protection right now, but if that is something that you guys want to hear about again, I think we covered it last year in Soul Shift, let me know, and we can add that on as a conversation to one of our classes, or I can incorporate it into the curriculum later in the year. It's basically because you want to be careful with pan protection. Pan protection is an energy that you can call in from your spirit guides. You can request it. It's direction from all directions. It's protection from all directions. The problem with pan protection is it can be overprotective, in my experience. And usually, if you're an empath, you don't want to shut down the energetic doors. Pan protection is usually for someone who's had a negative experience and they want to, build up their sense of safety again. And so it's good for a time, and then you can release it. But it is sort of the ultimate guardrails around your practice. So I wouldn't necessarily go there day to day. But I do think that setting an intention, opening a circle if you wish, and it's not like you don't have to worry about opening too many circles. You can open a circle every time you do energetic work forever if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to. Remember that my main guideline for asking myself if I should open a circle or not is whether I'm trying to raise energy. Because if you raise energy in a circle, it's going to be higher and tighter than it would be if you just raised energy without a circle and without a container, if that makes sense. Okay. Lauren is asking how this month's symbol is drawn. I would refer you to Crystal Masters this month, because I did draw it, and I also in session 1 too. So you'll find that, because it's with the audio, I can't draw it for you right now. And I think we may have posted a picture of it being drawn too, but if not, I did sort of a representation with my hands during class. And so you can go back and watch that if you'd like to see it again. Cynthia asked, are all colors of topaz protective and visibility cloaks? If not, which colors are best? I have a piece of blue topaz in one of your rings, and I'm wondering if that's the same level of protection as the giveaway piece. Yes, all topaz rides that frequency. Topaz comes in blue, white, champagne, which is kind of a golden whiskey color, and then pink. And it all is highly protective of the energy field. So it really doesn't matter what color you're working with. You've said in a recent video, this is Heather Nugent, that although you honor and acknowledge the shadow, you are clear about the fact that you serve the light. This is true. You then said that there are people who do not serve light, that they consciously or intentionally serve shadow. What would the practice of someone who serves shadow look like? And one of the things she was asking in her, and I probably should have been more accurate in my word choice, okay? Because shadow and evil, shadow and darkness are different. Everybody has a shadow. Everybody has subconscious stuff they're working out, right? And so that's not something to fear. And it's not even something you can serve. I mean, at the end of the day, it's sort of the structure of you, right? So it's not something to resist or push away or repress. There is dark magic in the universe, and it is its own force. I consciously do not work those energies because they're very destructive and very unstable. There are people who do work those energies. They tend not to work with me because it's the opposite of what I'm doing. And so, that's why I'm pretty conscious and pretty open about it. Are there places you can go to learn about it and practice it? Probably. I will tell you, I spend very little time thinking about that because it is, again, the literal opposite of what I do. But yes, there are people who consciously work a darker magic. Some people find it more exciting than light magic. It's certainly more mysterious. There's always more elusiveness around what is dark as opposed to what is light. And, some people, I've even seen a lot of dark magic being taught under the auspices of mystery schools. And, and when I've started to poke around, it's like I worry because people stumble on these websites and I'm not sure. Some of the language is encoded, but I know what to look for. And so there's certain ways that those particular people or groups or affinities would describe what they do without saying dark magic. But if you kind of know what you're looking for, then you can read through the lines. Darker magic has a different code of ethics than lighter magic. It's not necessarily for the highest good of all. And that's just sort of understood. It's just hard for me to imagine working that way because I think if you get something or manifest something that isn't in alignment with the highest good of all beings, A, it's usually not sustainable. And B, it's usually not supportive of the broader evolution of the planet. But there are people who want what they want, and they don't really care whether it's in alignment with your highest good. And I try not to judge that, but I also try not to indulge that. I hope that's a helpful question. But it's not about serving shadow. It's about serving the opposite of light, however you want to conceive that. Cassie McKinley asked, I saw something on here recently about the earth having its own chakras, which is true. I understand these lay along the ley lines, but many other places lay along the ley lines, such as the Bermuda Triangle. So who decides that Mount Shasta is the immovable root chakra? Why don't those other places I mentioned qualify as chakras? It's a great question. And the answer is I don't know, Cassie. I mean, this is just sort of the accepted wisdom on the subject that keeps getting recycled. I will tell you this, just like there are 108 energy centers in the body, there are, at least in my thinking, 108 energy centers around the planet too, which would be the crossing points of all of those ley lines. And there are at least 100 of them. So I think there are lesser and greater chakras on the planet, those particular ones being greater chakra points, but maybe something like a Bermuda Triangle or Easter Island being lesser. Doesn't mean they're not important. It just means they may not be the crux points or the crux lines. There are people who suggest, I don't have evidence of this, so I can't say, yes, I know for sure this is true. And I've never really asked to see it in medicine space, but maybe I will at some point. There are people who say that those particular 7 locations, and this would be an answer like why people say those are the ones, are actually entrance points to the center of the earth where some suggest there is a thriving human or humanoid population that is living and operating in the center of our planet right now. And that you can access that through those particular 7 chakra points on the planet. And I've heard many people talk about the access point that's at Mount Shasta that leads down into the center of the earth. But I have not been there. I have not seen it. I haven't seen pictures. So just for your consideration, since you asked. It's a great question. And then Melissa Rosario, I've been very interested in learning more about my ancestral history. How and who do I connect with in order for me to look deeper into that? Stay here because we're going to be doing a lot of ancestral work this year in Soul Shift at 2 different times over the course of the year, lineage work. Plant medicine is a great way to do lineage work if you start feeling called and connected to that. And then you can do material lineage work, DNA analysis and starting to look at your family's tree or chart to understand the different lines and lineages. Past life regression work, or QHHT, which is a relatively popular form of hypnotherapy, can be very successful. And you can always look up the QHHT websites and find licensed practitioners in your area who can do that work. QHHT is deep and intense. It's usually at least a half-day session, and it can be very expensive, but it's also effective for doing that work as well. And then Deborah Misquez asked, how do you break the habit of apologizing for everything and not take ownership for things? Hopefully, Deborah, you were listening to the live session yesterday because I kind of addressed this. Usually when I recognize an issue in myself, it's easier to fix it or accept it. She said, hi, my name is Deborah, and I'm a recovering people pleaser. I am too, Deborah. I have Libra rising, which is the ultimate people pleaser profile. If you have Libra rising, you're just a built-in people pleaser. And so I've had to really learn how to not sabotage my own needs and interests in service of just trying to make people happy. And every time I've done that, which I've done, I do it all the time. Every time I do it, I'm trying to stop and recognize and remind myself that usually it doesn't work out. If I do things just to make people happy that aren't in alignment with my highest good or whatever my soul's purpose in that moment seems to be, I always regret it. And then I usually go back and go, shouldn't have done that. So from yesterday's live, your takeaway, Deborah, should be that you're not here to fix, change, or solve. You're here to witness, observe, and hold space. That's what a priestess does. Now, if you decide to pursue a different path, then your mission or your purpose may change. But a priestess's job is not to fix things. A priestess recognizes that she can't. You know what I mean? So it's outside the ethical bounds to even think that I could make somebody happy or, I try, but it's also kind of not why I'm here. And so just keep reminding yourself, I'm not here to fix, change, or solve. I'm here to witness, support, and nurture, and guide, and lead, and grow, and love, right? And so, but love does not equal codependence. If the only way people will love you is if you make them happy, then that is fucked up. Can you imagine it? I think of it through the parenting lens. If my kids only loved me when I was making them happy, that's dysfunctional. Love also has to include respect, and love has to acknowledge boundaries, and love has to create space, and love has to allow and surrender and be soft, and love doesn't always want to be the loudest voice in the room or have to always be right or accurate all the time. Ultimately, the power of love is that it allows us to be fully human without apology. Aho to that. All right. So that concludes our February 2020 coaching. I hope you enjoyed this session. I'm very much looking forward to Elder Council with you tomorrow and to class with you later today. I'll see you soon.